Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Cosmic Currents, a podcast about surfing, spirits, and the stories that connect us all. If we haven't met yet, hi, I'm Leah. I'm an empowerment mentor, and I work with women to help them reconnect to the essence of who they truly are. I think that it's really common that over time we subtly lose touch with who we are at our core. Not always, not all the time, and not all of us, but I think it can happen, and I think it happens more often than we realize. We get a little bit disconnected from what our deepest, truest selves crave, our authentic selves. As we move through life, we make a lot of compromises, and at face value, they may not seem like a big deal. But the thing is, the nature of a compromise means that we're giving something up, and we're taught in life to learn to compromise. But if we have to give something up and we aren't fully on board with doing that, well, then is that even really a compromise? And, if we do that and we're not fully on board with it, it's like we're betraying ourselves. And that word betrayal, or to betray, it sounds maybe kind of harsh, but I think that it's true. And I think that once we start to betray ourselves, that maybe that also gives other people permission to do the same thing. Like, by betraying ourselves, are we energetically sending a message to ourselves and to the universe that says, my perspective, my needs, and my values aren't important? And then when someone inevitably betrays us or does something that we do to ourselves, this doesn't have to just be betrayal, but do we then have an easier time with it? Like, easier in quotations? Like, is it a little bit more acceptable? Because, is the way that we treat ourselves what we're willing to tolerate from others? So, like, if we judge ourselves, do we expect that others will too? Or, like, do we, I guess expect is the right word. And even though that's unwelcome, it may end up feeling normal, right? And I think that this might be part of the reason why we expect or normalize or tolerate unwanted behaviors from others, because deep down inside, we believe that, like, we're no better. We do the same thing. And in fact, like, we might even be on their side. Like, it's like they're validating an insecurity or a fear that we have. And maybe it also goes the other way. So, like, in the example with compromises, someone teaches us that it's normal to give something up that you want or need, and that's acceptable. So that also, like, some compromises are bigger than others, right? Like, some have different weight. So obviously using discretion or discernment is necessary. So yeah, like, what I meant, because I feel like that was a little bit unfinished, like, it could go the other way in the example with compromises. Like, when we compromise, or in the past, like, we've been taught to compromise. Like, we didn't just come up with it necessarily. Like how, relationships are all about compromise, or I didn't want to do it, but I compromised. And it's like, are you okay with that compromise? Anyway, along the way, somebody like told us or expected of us that, like, getting less than what you want is okay. And yeah, so I guess that, leads into what I said after, like, different levels. There are different levels of compromising, and no, we shouldn't always be getting what we want. And it's not to say, like, we should be spoiled, or it's in our, I don't know, like, it's our right to have every little thing we want. I'm talking about stuff that reflects our essence, right? Our authentic selves. When we compromise, when we make big compromises, are we compromising on who we are? I guess that's the theme, the topic. And so, yeah, like, this pattern of compromising, I think, is interesting, because it's like, or like, basically realizing, like, the way we treat ourselves is the way we allow others to treat us as well. Like, if we we become harsh with ourselves. We become really critical of ourselves, and then we receive that treatment from someone else. Like I said, it's kind of validating. It's like affirming, like almost maybe even comforting, because it's like oh, we knew it, like validating, I guess is the word. And I think that becomes like a learned low self-esteem. It's like it's because it's not natural for us to have low self-esteem, even though we might think it is. If you would have asked me that, many years ago, not many years ago actually, but, in the past, I would have kind of thought like, oh, some people are just more confident and. But no, I think actually we learn this. We learn low self-esteem. I think it's not in our human nature to have low self-esteem. And so I guess, having low self-esteem is a place that, or is something that I just thought kind of, it just happens, but I don't think it just happens. And we can change it. And, because existing in an experience of low self-esteem is not a place where I want to hang out anymore, or, is not where I want to hang out. And so this topic, this theme is one way I think we can start addressing low self-esteem, or recognizing it. Maybe we don't even recognize that this is a reflection of that. But so this new learned low self-esteem, I think, can be unlearned by reconnecting to who you are. What do you need to feel safe, happy, joyful, secure, fulfilled, connected? It's worth it. You are deserving of all of those things. And that's probably the first step. And the second thing is, do you know what your values are? Those are really big questions, and they can be hard to answer, especially if you are someone who focuses on the needs and the well-being of others. And it might even feel unnatural or selfish to consider what those are for yourself. Yet somehow, if we express our, professional or career-oriented goals, or that type of vision, of success is supported by mainstream society. But if you express that you want to feel safer in your body and experience a deep connection with nature, people will tilt their head to the side with confusion. It's just not something that people generally talk about or ask, or and people go, well, what do you do? And they mean, what do you do for work, right? How do you make a living? And sometimes I've had people ask me that, and I have to go oh, you mean for work? Because I just think it's such a weird thing. I don't ever ask someone, what do you do, without finishing what I mean. Because someone's work, their success, professional success, to me is not, it's one outlet, I guess, of success. So I obviously really believe that personal values and desires are extremely important, and not only on an individual level, but because you and me and every human on this planet are a part of nature. We are a part of our ecosystem. We are not separate from it. And everything that you think and that you do has an energetic frequency. And more physically, the things that you do can have a physical ripple effect, obviously, but I think we realize that, right? We realize, some things are more obvious than others, like your trash output, or the things you buy and consume and whatever. But the things that you think and say also have an energetic frequency. And so that's all to say that you are powerful, and I want you to realize it, and I want you to embody it. And that is going to look different on everyone, which I think is so cool. And so the big question is, how do we do that? How do we embody our power? Or in other words, how do we become empowered? And the first thing that I always do when I work with any new client is we talk about values. And so if I were to ask you right now, what are your values? Could you tell me? I really believe that values should act as our guides. They should be where we make decisions from, and how we connect with our deepest desires. So our values are also a way that we can get to know ourselves better. They can help us reflect on who we are, what make us feel like us, and they can also make us realize like when we might be needing to redirect ourselves. Values are not about, creating an opportunity to judge, so yourself or someone else. And they are not about finding like the most morally superior way of life either. It's not, values are not about becoming this like ideal person, like on paper or just in your head. Values are just about rediscovering your most authentic expression of self. So I will share my values just to, I don't know, just because I want to. No, just because, I don't know. I think that knowing a person, also just to give an example of what I'm talking about, and maybe it will help you rethink the way you think about values or consider your own. But for me, my top core values, I would say at this moment in time, but I also think, I'll talk about this after, but I also think that these have been my values forever. And anyway, so my values are connection, nature, creation, and freedom. And recently I've realized I've wanted to add love and integrity to this list. And for me, that feels complete for now. And I'm going to share my kind of like desired expression of these. So, connection to me. Like life is most authentic and real and full and purposeful with connection. And the connection I'm referring to is both with humans, with animals, with intuition, with nature, with spirit. And you could say that spirit is intertwined in nature and intuition. But so for me, I don't know, I laugh a little because I don't know. Since I was a little kid, I have felt a very deep connection with animals specifically. I was a volunteer in my elementary school's pet room, and I would literally do that instead of like go play outside with other kids, like quite often. This ended up with me going vegetarian when I was 11, and mind you, my entire Italian family ate meat like all the time. And I was always begging my parents for different pets and like connecting with like the neighbor's dog. Like, I just loved animals. I was obsessed with horses. And, for me, it's very easy to see that there's a soul in an animal. And, animals and nature are very, very intertwined. Another expression of this is with humans. And while I'm not like an extroverted person at all, and I'm not interested in just connecting with like everyone and anyone, my friendships are truly meaningful to me. And they just bring a lot of purpose to my life, and my friendships, or like there are certain connections that I really value in my life. As well as living in connection with spirit is extremely important to me, and something that I've needed to work at. I've needed to work at reconnecting to it after years of feeling very disconnected. And, it's like any relationship, it needs to be nourished. I think the episode 1 talks a lot about that. The next value I had was nature. So, the ocean, obviously, plants. They, for me, are one of like the most direct lines of communication that I have with spirit. So through swimming, surfing, and just going for walks, I really feel an enhanced connection, an enhanced intuition, and like just a different energy in my body. There's also like food, like plant food is, and I guess like animal products a little bit are also, I guess, considered part of nature, and plant medicines, and those things also they can help, right? Like they're like supplements. But to me, nature is just extremely powerful. And so, as you can probably see, like by now, as I go through these, many of these values start to overlap and complement each other. The next one I had was creation, and it's kind of like creativity, but it's slightly different. So I really value the ability of expression through creation. So that could be creative outlets like drawing, dancing, writing, having a podcast. But to me, the podcast thing, it's not so much creativity, but creation. Something that wasn't there that I have created. Creating a business, creating a home, creating a relationship. Like, I just think it's really empowering to remember that we create our own realities, and those are some of the expressions. The other one I had was freedom. So this one has a lot to do with just being able to freely be and accept who I am, which is more in my mind than anywhere else. And it's a lot for me. It represents for me just being able to live life on my own terms, the freedom to enjoy and and actually live life, freedom in my body, knowing I'm healthy. So like, yeah, I don't have health as one of my top values, but it is very important to me. And maybe it falls under this, like, yeah, I just realized that I don't have health as on here. I also really value being free of things like intrusive thoughts and not creating like my own inner prison and forcing myself to live there. So that's what freedom represents to me. Now, my last two are more recent additions. And the first one was love. And in the book Conversations with God, this concept of love versus fear is talked about. And they say that everything at its core is based on one of these two emotions. So every decision we make, action we take, we either make it out of love or we make it out of fear. And, love is something I want to do, I want to have, I want to be. Like, that's where I want to make, apart from, these values, but that's what I want to make decisions based off. That's what I want to embody. That's what I want to express. Like, the alternative, fear, like, it doesn't interest me. I don't want to make decisions. I don't want to do things because I'm scared. I want to do things out of love. So that's why that one made it to the list. And lastly, integrity, which sometimes I think this actually works against me because I always want to do things really well, and not like well, like perfect, but well as in like with integrity. Truthfully, I want to do things that are meaningful, and I want to, I don't want to ever be like offensive, or I don't want to put out this image of something I'm not. I don't want to be this like imposter, I really want to embody what I think that I am and then show that. And sometimes too, like if something isn't working, I will just keep trying instead of letting it go, because I want things to have integrity and I want them to make it right. So I will give it my all. And yeah, and said, sometimes I can just let things go. And yeah, over this past year, this has just been such an important theme for me that, yes, I realized, of course, it's one of my core values. Sometimes we don't realize how important something is until somebody shows us, or when it's not there. Like, for example, this one may not have been top of mind until you or someone close to you is not living in integrity or is not expressing integrity, and then we feel the experience or the consequence of that, and then you're like, wow, I would have really valued integrity, or I was expecting integrity. And I think it's interesting, like, that values, they can be actually just so obvious until you don't have them, or you aren't able to express them or access them. So that could be a good starting place. If you are wanting to connect to your own values, consider like where you may feel a longing or a lack, and kind of sit with that feeling and ask yourself, like, what would fill that? What would you need? And then you can kind of like, go through the wording and dig at that a little bit, peel back the layers and find, I think, one word that really encapsulates, is that the right word? That feeling or that need. And, this might become a practice for you for a little while, is just paying attention and listening to that. And maybe what was I going to say? Sorry, my throat was itchy. Yeah, so basically just asking yourself, like, what do you need? And then you go and embody that. So this is the empowering part, really, is like you figure out what you need, and then you don't look for it in a partner or in something else. You embody it. You find a way to express that value in your life. And that also may become a practice, like once you do have your values, then practice expressing them. And maybe you'll feel a calling. Maybe you already do. Just listen to that. So if you are wanting to feel or live more aligned and really feel like the person that you are, if that makes sense. If you want to stop living a life that doesn't really feel like you can get quiet, listen, see what comes up. And, if things don't come up right away, don't worry. Like, it might take time to unravel things that might have been suppressed or buried or compromised. How did we get here? I'm talking about compromises. And what I think is that it's absolutely never too late. So I invite you to find a place, find something you can do or a place you can be, and actually just allow your thoughts to bubble up. So this could just be like going for a walk in nature without listening to anything. Sit in stillness, close your eyes, even just do some deep stretches, slow stretches, and just see how that feels and what comes up. Maybe pick one thing and stick to it for a little while and see what happens. Oftentimes for me, in meditation, for example, when I sit down, the first thing that usually happens, usually I'll try to focus on my breath for a while, and then you get distracted by your thoughts, or I do. And a lot of times it's actually not my own thoughts or opinions. Sometimes it won't be just me thinking of thoughts and feelings or whatever, but it'll actually be a bit of a replay of content I've consumed. I'll get a flashback to a reel or something random that I watched, so it's really interesting that all of that kind of still lives in our mind, even when we're not conscious of it. And so, yeah, I would say just kind of cleaning house is a good thing to do. And then, once you're in a place where you feel like you can dig a little deeper with a clear mind, I would say try to consider what your values are. If you had to make a big decision, what would you base it off of? If you need some more guidance with finding your values, I do have a free email-based or email-delivered mini course, and I can leave the link in the episode description. But basically, if you sign up, you'll get 3 emails for 3 days, and there'll be prompts that'll help you discover what your values are. So yeah, if you want a little bit of help with that, I have that resource available. And then, once you have your values, consider how they might express themselves, or how you honor them or express them, or practice accessing and embodying them, even if you can't fully do it yet, depending on what your values are, right? And just really allow time and space for this practice of reconnection, because it will not happen overnight. We don't lose touch with ourselves overnight. So again, we won't fully get it back. We won't fully reconnect in one day or one night or 1 week. It's just moment to moment. And that's what's so beautiful about a practice, is it's just moment to moment. And it's going to change, and it's going to look different every single day. But the idea is that you will be able to get I really truly believe, with the help of values, you will find a really solid foundation, and you will be able to make decisions based off of that foundation, or and build your life on it. And then when things fall out of alignment, or things aren't in alignment, someone crosses a boundary, or you don't know what to do, you will automatically, intuitively be drawn back to those values. And it's not that you don't know what they are, it's just that you're maybe not aware of what they are. And it's not like, I'm not saying that we aren't already whole. It's just that sometimes we become disconnected. And this whole process, my whole job now is helping people get reconnected. So I will leave you with that for today. And if you would like to connect, you can reach out to me on Instagram if you want, at leah.donatello, or by email, and that's just hello@leahdonatello.com. And I have that free mini course. I'll leave you the link. But until next time, buenas olas.